Good morning, Trish here. We're gonna do some yin today, and we're gonna be using the wall or a chair or a couch or a bed or anything you have. Just wanna make sure it's pressed up against a wall so that you can use it to put your feet on. So let's get started. Let's begin with several deep breaths, just grounding and settling. Maybe closing the eyes. Feel free to just gaze down if you don't want to shut the eyes. And just start tuning in to your body, to the movement of the breath. Feel the weight of your body pressing down, whatever you're sitting on. And we're going to take 3 more deep breaths. Feel free to open your eyes and look around. Just wiggle your fingers, lean back, maybe bend your knees and wiggle your toes. And we're gonna make our way onto our spine as we move into our practice today. So whether you are using a chair or the wall, I think I'm just gonna use my wall today. We're gonna sit right next to whatever we're putting our legs up, and then we're gonna lie down and lift the legs up in the air. And notice my buns are not touching the wall. There's a little bit of distance, and I actually prefer this because that diagonal allows my legs to really be able to relax without having to feel like I'm holding them there. So as you come into this shape, you'll find out what you like. If you're using that chair, of course, your knees might be bent, and that's totally fine. As you move here, make sure that you allow yourself the time you need to settle in. Feel free to slide a block or I prefer actually a blanket or pillow under the hips to lift the tailbone a little bit, adding to the angle of the inversion. Once you feel comfortable, you can allow your arms to be by your sides or out wide like wings, or even up over your head. I'm just going to offer random options for your arms today. Just move them to where you feel like they're going to be beneficial for you. And settle once more into the rhythm of your breath. Letting the stress drain down toward the center of the body and then into the ground beneath you. Focusing mainly on the belly breathing, but don't worry if your chest gets involved. It's okay. Trying to breathe through your nose, practicing nasal breathing. So important for balancing the body systems. If you ever feel like there's too much pressure in your head because of the inversion, it's just fine if you'd like to slide a pillow or a blanket up under your head, even under the top of your shoulders. Remember, we're just watching the traffic of our thoughts, watching the sensations in the body as they change. as the breath moves us. Let's take 2 more breaths here. And then just begin to bring one knee into the chest and kind of rock the knee side to side. And you can bring the other knee in and rock it a little bit. You can stretch the first leg back up if you want to, or you can have both knees in. We're just gently rocking. And you might feel a little bit of tingling in your legs, your feet, as you bring them lower down. We're gonna move pretty quickly into the next shape, which is simply legs up the wall, but wide. So we're moving into that inner leg stretch. And if it feels like there's too much pressure on the inner leg because you're kind of holding the legs up, you can also kind of use your arms to help support, or you can grab blocks, placing them if that's comfortable for you. Also, you can come into a little less of width. See if you can let your feet kind of flop open and allow the body to move into this new stretch. Returning when you find your position to your belly breath. Inviting stillness in and letting it be your medicine. Adding whatever arm position comes to mind, whatever feels good. Notice where you feel supported and where you feel like you might be holding on. If you can, release a little more. If you can't, just readjust so that you might feel more supported. Slow, deep breaths. Let's take one more breath here. And starting by bending the knees, putting the feet on the wall or the support, and then beginning to bring those knees in and together once again. So feel free to rock a little. And I'm actually going to try to get a little closer to the wall for my next pose. It's going to be a butterfly against the wall. So as I'm rocking my knees into my chest, I'm going to start kind of walking my hips and shoulders down my mat toward the wall. I don't know if that makes any sense, but I'm kind of scooching along until I get a little closer. And then I'm going to put my legs right back up the wall, wiggle those toes. And with the soles of the feet coming together, I'm going to slide the feet down the wall. The outer edge of my feet are sliding along the wall. This is a really nice inner leg stretch, a little different from the wide angle. And you might find that your feet kind of slowly slide down the wall bit by bit. That's just normal. It's your body slowly relaxing. Also here, you can use your hands under your thighs or your knees to support it a little bit if you feel like it's too intense, or blocks. Anything you can find that is good and supportive. Keep that belly breath going, slow and steady. Feel the movement of the breath in the body. Feel free to keep your arms low down by your side or out wide, or even consider bringing the hands up under the head into that double butterfly with the elbows wide. And this might help relieve some of the pressure from the inversion. Notice that when you inhale, those ribs really expand if you've chosen to slide the hands behind the head and have the elbows wide. You definitely don't have to keep the feet completely connected. At this point, as low as my legs have gotten, only the balls of my feet and my toes are touching. My heels are pretty wide apart. As the stretch becomes intense, breathe deeply into that area, just sending love and kindness there, knowing when it's time for you to release. It's okay to come in and out of the poses. It's okay to just stop stretching for a moment, taking a break. Remember, you are important. We'll take 3 more deep breaths here. When you feel ready, you'll just take your hands on the outside of your legs and help bring them back together again, placing the feet on the wall or whatever you're using. Just pausing here for a moment, knees bent, feet on the wall, and then feel free to stretch one leg up, maybe flop the foot a little bit, and then the other leg. For the next shape, we have 2 very different options. You can stay here on your back for one more pose. We've been on our backs for almost 20 minutes, so that's a long time for the head to be below the heart. If you feel like you've had enough of this inversion, then we are there's 2 ways to do the pose. You can do it seated, or you can do it here against the wall on your back. So for everyone, no matter what you're gonna do, let's all just kind of roll over onto our right side, into our seed pose. And your feet might be flat up against your wall. That feels nice. That's actually really comforting sometimes, to feel the safety of the base. Maybe you can just feel the foot of a chair, or maybe your feet are sliding under a couch. It's all good. It just is important to be able to roll over, let all of the fluid in the body come back into this neutral position. Just take a few breaths and a few moments to think about your heart and what you love. Think about the good, the people who love you, and the people you love. Take another deep breath. And I'll show you the pose on your back first. It's going to be a squat pose. So I'm going to roll back on my back, put my feet on the floor, but I'm on the wall, but I'm going to put them wide apart. And I'm going to bring the heels as close to my buns as I can get them. And I might even hold on to the shins or the outer knees. The knees are wide apart, the feet are wide apart, and I'm pressing, not really pushing, I'm just resting the soles of my feet against the wall. That's the one that you can do on your back. The other one would be slowly coming up, go slow, you might get a little head rush, and placing your back right up against the wall, knees bent, feet on the floor, walking those feet in as close as you can get them to you, flattening up the back, leaning back against the wall. And both of these poses are going to be really good for compressing the hips, flattening the back. Practicing this pose seated is going to engage a lot more muscle. So if you are wanting a little strengthening in your back and you feel really ready, you can come on up. If you prefer that supported, really relaxing position on your spine, feel free to stay right there. And of course, we are returning to our breath. Deep breaths low down into the belly. And you can really feel this as you are settling into this squat pose. You can feel how when you breathe into that low belly, the low back gets tight, and maybe you can even feel it pressing against the floor or the wall if you're leaning up against that. Relaxing the shoulders. You can also feel free to place the backs of your arms on your legs and maybe put your chin in your hands. Some people like to bring their arms to the inside of the legs and gently press them apart, bringing the hands together. There's lots of different positions here. Especially if you're going to be using the elbows on the inside, watch that low back. Make sure it's not starting to curve. We want to keep it flat. And let's just continue to watch the traffic in our minds. Choosing to rest rather than push, even if that means we don't go quite as deep. Notice where you feel the sensation here. This is a really deep compression in the hips. So you might feel kind of some pressure building up in that joint, which is going to feel really good when we open it up. That's one of the amazing gifts of our yin practice, is that opening up and how it flushes the energy out of those places where it can sometimes get stuck. And our hips are one giant place where a lot of energy in our body gets stuck. Let's take 3 more breaths. If you are seated, you're just going to slowly stretch out one leg at a time. If you have been on your back, again, you can stretch up one leg at a time. And if you have been on your back, you're going to slowly take a while with your legs back up the wall, maybe 4 or 5 breaths, and then roll over to one side, pausing there as the rest of us stretch the legs out, maybe rock the pelvis a little bit, rolling through the tailbone. And we're all going to come up to seated for the next 2, 3, 4 poses. But take your time. Remember, yin is where we get to go really slow. So you get to take a really long time here. Really deep breaths. Feel free to move or just relax against the wall. All right, our next shape is going to be a wide angle, and you can add a forward fold. You can just sit with your legs wide apart, your back resting against the wall, but by resting, I actually mean gently leaning into the wall, the back of the head included. We want to do this therapeutic, it's very therapeutic for the spine to be completely lengthened along a wall or a bed. And if you are leaning back and there's nothing for your head to lean back on, just tuck your chin, getting the spine completely aligned with the back of the head. Good. Now if you want to, a really safe forward fold here is to grab a block, keeping the spine long, just leaning into the shape. Maybe placing the elbows on a block. When I put my elbows down, I start to round. So I'm gonna keep my elbows high so that my spine stays really long, and you get this really deep stretch on the inner legs here. Yeah. Beginning to move back into that deep belly breath. This time you might even feel the entire back body as you breathe in, it expands. And at first I'm just gonna keep my toes pointing up, and then as I settle in, I'm gonna let the feet kind of flop forward so that I come more and more into rest and relax. Feel free to close the eyes. If you've chosen to do the forward fold, if you start to feel the chest dropping, just gently tip the tailbone back. Good. And of course, if it becomes too much work to be leaning forward, then just gently find your way back against your support. Most of our shapes today are going to be around 3 minutes, which is just a little longer than we usually do. Let the body slowly unfold into peacefulness. Let's take one more deep breath here. And slowly come back up. I'm actually going to push myself just a little way away from the wall just for a minute. And then bend the knees and put the feet on the floor. And I'm going to take some cat-cows here. Now, if you know that this is probably not the best thing for your low back, then I want to invite you to come all the way up into a full table pose so you can get some really safe movement in that tailbone. And we're going to wait a little longer before we do our next pose because I want to really allow that low back some relief from the pressure of pressing up against the wall, because the next pose is going to be butterfly at the wall, seated, and we hardly ever do a seated butterfly anymore, and that is because of how dangerous it can be for the low back, especially if you have any softening of the bones, osteoporosis or osteopenia. But this pose, I think, might be the safest way to get into our butterfly seated. Of course, we can do it on our spine, which is very safe as well. So take your time, rock in the pelvis, and eventually maybe just coming into stillness, resting, relaxing. A couple more deep breaths. And then slowly come back down to the wall, and I'm going to be really close to the bottom of the wall with my buns, really close to that baseboard or the bottom of whatever you're leaning on there. And I'm going to bring the soles of my feet together, The knees wide apart, and this is a great time to use the blocks underneath those knees to help support this shape. The closer I can get my tailbone to the wall, the better I'm gonna have a supported position for the back. I didn't use very good grammar there. The closer I can get to the wall, the more the low back will be able to swing away slightly because my tailbone will be touching the wall. And then my back is slightly away from the wall. My shoulders, my upper back, and my heart is really open. The heart really leads the way in this shape. And I might just stay right here. Or I might bring my hands to my ankles or my feet. The belly is leaning in, the heart is still open. And right away I feel a lot of work down either side of the musculature along the spine. Really important part of our body to strengthen. And then of course we're getting that nice deep inner leg stretch, a hip opener. And when I started teaching yin, this is how I would always begin and end our classes. And I miss it. There's something really special about a butterfly pose. I think it's because, especially, and it's okay to do this, to drop the head inward, just the chin, not allowing the spine to round at all, just keeping the spine long and tall, but allowing the chin to drop. There's something very inward focused here, coming back into myself, and remembering, just like my affirmation board says, I am me. And what does that mean today? If at any point you feel like that low back is getting too tired, feel free to lean back, feeling the support of the wall, seeing if you can soften the hips and breathe into the belly. Let's take one more deep breath. Slowly coming up, leaning back. If you've already been leaning back, just relaxing those shoulders and beginning to stretch out one leg and then the other. You might bring them a little more straight out in front of you just to relieve that inner leg stretch as well. Just moving the legs slightly side to side, wiggling those toes. We're going to move into a gentle twist. So this one is going to be really interesting to try. We're going to take both of our knees and rock them over. We're going to try to have the thigh that's close to the wall pretty much parallel to the wall. And it's really up to you how close you want to get. And you'll see why. Because what we're going to do is take the hand that's right next to the wall and slide it back. And you might just keep the arm open and straight, and you might keep the other arm forward, and this might be enough of a twist for you. Or you might bring both hands to the wall, elbows bent, and lean into this twist. So depending on how close you are to the wall, if you get closer, this is going to be a little different. And we always want to make sure we unlock the twist by taking the knee and the hip of this leg that's closer to the wall and just scooting it slightly back. I know, that's why the wall is in the way. Now my knee is pushing up against the wall. So just a little bit of distance from the wall is good. And then using the wall at whatever level you need to. I actually like having the hand behind because it's a nice opener for this shoulder. Okay. We're just gonna breathe here. If you feel like your low back is kind of dropping forward too much, just lift the heart, gently draw the belly in. You can add the neck, looking over the shoulder or gazing at the wall. Sometimes it might even feel good to just lean the forehead against the wall. I can feel the vibration of my air conditioner. And let's bring our breath up into our mid-chest, right up into those ribs. If the hand that's reaching back gets tired, you can always let it come down behind you. Yin is so much more about the stretch than the work. So I find that if I'm moving into working hard, I need to find a slightly different position so I can move back into relaxation. Just watching your thoughts like you would watch the traffic. Remembering to be kind to yourself if you've jumped on to a train of thought. Just climb back off and sit back down beside the road again and breathe. Let's take 2 more deep breaths. Slowly bringing that hand that's behind us around toward the front. Maybe roll that shoulder out a little bit, move the head. And gently bring the knees up, the feet come to the floor. And we're gonna lean back here again, and you might leave your knees bent. Feel free to rock that pelvis a little bit. If it feels better for you, you might cross your legs and lean forward, or even come up into a child's pose. Anything that feels good. We're just going to take a quick break here before we move into the other side, allowing the twist to slowly disappear from our bodies. Maybe another breath or two. Feel free to keep relaxing if you need to. And when you feel ready, we just point the knees in the other direction. I know I'm putting my back to you. Seeing about how parallel we want this leg that's close to the wall, how close we want it to the wall. Taking that hand behind and seeing if it feels good to have the arm stretched out or the elbow bent. Readjusting. Finding that position that feels like a really good place where you could rest and breathe for about 2 minutes. If you think there's too much sway in the low back, walk that hip that's right next to the wall slightly back so that you open up the hips a little bit and then lift the heart and spine, drawing the belly in. There's lots of different places you can put your hands. If you're close enough, again, you can lean that forehead against the wall. letting the shoulders soften. See if there's somewhere else that you can relax a little bit more, maybe a toe or a wrist or your neck. Let's take 2 more deep breaths. Slowly unwinding. Bringing the knees up, the feet can stay on the floor. Maybe some sighing breaths. We're going to take our time coming onto our hands and knees. Back up to our table pose, or maybe it might be a first time for you. Several cat-cows. And I'm going to walk my feet right up to the wall. Of course, if you're using a chair or a couch, you'll just walk them right up to the base of that support. Rocking the spine, feel free to move the shoulders, the hips in some big circles. And you might already be feeling some of the effects of our practice, some deep cooling in the muscles and the joints. We're going to be moving down onto our bellies in a moment. I want to show you what this is going to look like first, so feel free to keep doing your cat-cow. I'm going to come down onto my elbows first and then step one knee back. My foot goes up the wall and then the other knee back, and I slowly settle down. Now your knees do not have to be straight. Your knees don't have to be touching the baseboard, but if you want them to, you can kind of crawl yourself back and settle in. So when you're ready to start this, go ahead and settle. Now the closer my knees are to the wall, the more pressure I have in my low back, so I actually want to be slightly away. Okay, and then we're going to be resting down for a few minutes here on our bellies, just feeling the stretch that is initiated simply by having the knees bent, and I'm just letting my feet soften on the wall. A couple of deep breaths. Now I'm already really feeling this in my low back. I've been having a lot of pressure in my low back the last couple of days, so I'm probably not going to go up into Sphinx pose today. But if you're feeling like this is nothing, everything's great, and you don't have any big sensation in that low back, then you can lift the head. Maybe just bring the elbows slightly forward, or you can come all the way up into your Sphinx pose here. Just see how that feels. And we're going to be here either in Sphinx pose or just belly down for about 2 minutes. And know that if you have a lot of flexibility in your spine and you love seal pose, you can, of course, try a seal pose. Toward the end, I'll even give you an extra 30 seconds if you want to try that. I don't want to encourage everyone to do that because there's a lot of pressure added simply by having our legs up the wall like this. Enjoy that belly breath, toning the diaphragm. Softening the shoulders, the neck. If you'd like to try a Sphinx pose for maybe 2 or 3 breaths, maybe one with the elbows a little more forward, allowing the back to bend a little more in the mid-spine, maybe try that. We have about 20 seconds left here. If you'd like to try a seal pose now, feel free. Seal pose being arms stretched out, shoulders lifted higher. I'm not even going to show that pose because it's really not good for my spine in this position, so I want you to be really careful. Really reminding yourself that you are never missing out when you take good care of yourself. And we'll all take 2 more breaths. And relaxing all the way down. Breathing into that low belly. Feel free to rock one leg, maybe bring it away from the wall and cross it behind the other one. And then you can try the other leg. We're going to go really slow here with the rocking. It might not feel good. If it does, you can continue to do it. Good. Coming back to center. If you need to come back up to table or try a child's pose at any time, please do that. I am going to move into our half squished frog, sliding one knee out to the side. I want to bring the sole of the foot right up to the base of the wall or the edge of whatever you're using there. The other foot is going to stay up the wall. So I look like I'm a little bit of a pinwheel here. And we're just going to be on this side for about a minute. I'm going to turn my head in the direction of my knee. I'm going to reach out with my other arm and maybe even rest my ear a little more. So this adds a little bit of side stretch. Moving the breath therapeutically down into that low, low back and belly. Adding to that simple stretch. Take another breath on this side. And then gently moving the foot back up the wall, the knee back in line with the other knee. I'm going to move right into the other side, rolling onto the side I was just facing. I'm bending the knee, but then I'm bringing the sole of my foot down toward the wall and reaching out with this other arm, coming into the pose on this other side. Hopefully you're feeling a deep stretch along the side of the body that you're resting on. And you're breathing down low into the belly. Let's take one more breath here. Slowly bringing that leg back. The arms are reaching out. And then I'm going to slide my hands right up next to my chest, right below the shoulders. I'm going to start to press my feet into the wall as I kind of walk myself away from the wall a little bit and gently press up to a table pose, bringing the feet down, crawling up, and then moving into child's pose, knees wide, big toes together, sinking back. And it's okay if you're right up next to your wall. Just slowly settle that low back in here. Taking 2 more breaths. And then slowly pushing up and coming to a seated position. I want you to be able to watch what we're gonna do next. There are 2 really different options. One of them is really extreme, and I don't know if any of you guys wanna try it. The other one is really safe, and I definitely would recommend it. So the first one that's really safe is coming back onto our spine. Don't do this yet, just watch, because I'm gonna be coming back up to here to show you the other position, so you might wanna do one or the other. So I'm gonna come back up, but I'm not gonna come right up to the wall. I'm gonna come about the distance of my shins from the wall. So from the knee to the heel, I want kind of a right angle here, and then I'm gonna come into figure 4 shape, one ankle in front of the other right here. Or, now this is the extreme one that I think may not be a good idea, but I wanted to offer it to you because it's pretty interesting. It would be coming right back into that table pose with our feet up against the wall, coming into pigeon. My right knee slides up toward my right thumb, and then my other knee, I'm gonna slide myself back. It comes right up to the base of the wall. Woo, and I need something under this other hip because I'm up really high, but I'm gonna stay lifted the whole time, or eventually come down onto that pigeon leg. So this position right here is really a big stretch on the quad, a really big stretch on the outer hip. If you want to try it, feel free. You have free will. But I really recommend, just for safety, and also kind of coming to the end of our class here, this position also gets a really nice stretch in this leg. And you could eventually stretch this other leg out and get a little opening across that thigh as well. So good luck. If you have any questions, feel free to unmute and ask. This will be our final pose before Shavasana, and this will be our first side, of course. We'll be on one side for about a minute, and then we'll try the other. Just 2 more breaths on this side. Gently moving out of the shape. I can't tell if any of you guys decided to do the on your knees position. If you did, then you're just gonna roll over onto your hip and bring your legs around front. Those of us with our feet against the wall, we're just gonna switch to the other side. Good. Two more breaths. Gently releasing. And And you're going to take your time thinking about what you want to do for Shavasana. One of the simplest things to do would just be put those feet right back up the wall, staying right where you are. But for some of you, it might have been enough with the legs up the wall. So you'll just gently roll over into seed pose, and you can stay in seed pose for Shavasana. Or you could come up and scoot yourself down your mat so that you are in your Shavasana, maybe with your feet touching the wall, supported there. Or the head could be at the wall, it doesn't matter. As you know, there's no wrong position for Shavasana. As your body settles in, maybe humming as you exhale, allowing the body to really feel safe and supported, using blankets and pillows and anything else that you need. We have about 3 minutes left to just do nothing at all. Feel free to turn the sound off or listen, and I'll sing to you a little bit. This is our yin prayer. May we be protected together. May we be nourished together. May we work together with the energy of greatness. May our lives be filled with brilliance and light, and may there be no ego between us. Let your next breath be even deeper. Let it out as you slowly open your eyes. And maybe just gently wiggle your fingers and toes. Take your time if your legs have been up the wall. I want to take 3 or 4 breaths in each position as you transition. So the knees come down, take a breath or 2. The knees roll over, take a breath or 2 or 3. And then gently coming up to seated. Feel free to lean back on your support or just sit up. And we bring our hands together at our hearts. And we say thank you to each other and to the good in us that brought us here. Namaste. If you liked this video, please like and subscribe and share it with your friends.